It's time for your Talk Time Live exclusive.
You are now about to witness the strength of geek knowledge.
2022 marks the return of the River City Girls. We not only get to play the upcoming River City Girls 2, coming soon to all major platforms, we also get the prequel that inspired Misako and Kyoko's standalone adventure, newly named River City Girl Zero, I should say, which is out now on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5. To celebrate this awesome series, I invited back Adam Tierney, who is the project lead for River City Girl Zero, and Bannon Rudis, director of River City Girls 2, to talk about their involvement in the latest installments and more. Please, folks, welcome back Adam and Bannon to Talk Time Live exclusive. Fellas, how you doing? Welcome back, and it's great to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be seen. Hello.
Exactly. 2019 seems like a very, very long time ago.
It does, and it doesn't in a way. It feels like we were just working on the first one not too long ago.
It does feel like a weird time warp where we just got stuck in some weird nexus of time. But this does bring up, I didn't even know there was a retro game showcase happening this weekend. And I'm almost tempted to go to that because I'm like, I have not been around like other
an actual convention
and talking about stuff. So
I went to the a couple months ago, the little mini San Diego Comic-Con. It was so good just to.
How was it? Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Like, didn't know anybody who, like, I didn't
it
go,
was cool.
Obviously.
Yeah, because that's like, but for me and my family, that's like the big thing we do each year. And I guess what they did is they canceled the summer one, and then there was enough progress with COVID that they said, oh, okay, we'll do a little one in the fall. But it was cool. It was definitely smaller. It was more.
This was in November, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it was cool. They had all the booths and they had all the toys and shirts and all that stuff. It was cool just to be back there.
I mean, I got really blessed and fortunate because like I'm working with Repop now, so I got to go to New York Comic-Con, which went off without a hitch. I'm so happy about that with everything. And it was my first time going to New York Comic-Con too, so I was really appreciative of how everything turned out there. So I'm just hopefully we'll get everything back into the swing of things this year, and we'll all be back and having fun again. But for the both of you, last time we spoke, you debuted it, the first installment of River City Girls, which I gotta say I got a crush on that game, to say the least. But since then we've
about you too, by the way.
That's good to know. But I would say, since then, the popularity for this IP or intellectual property, I should say, grew significantly. Like, boom. What were your thoughts on the response to that, to the game since that time? And Adam, I'll start with you with that question. You could go ahead from there, Bannon.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting because, again, like for people that don't know, it's based on Kunio-Kun, which has had about 50 games in Japan. Right. And so we were really kind of surprised. We thought that was going to be, we were going to be more piggybacking on that. So we thought it was going to be received as like, oh, this is a Kunio-Kun game. This is tied to these other games and stuff. It really kind of took off on its own. And I think probably the majority of people that bought it and downloaded it had not really played those games, or a lot of people weren't even aware of that, right. The older, like broader brand. So, and then, similarly, like we thought like, okay, because it's so established in Japan, that's where the bigger audience was. But in America, it exploded. And again, I think, like I said, I think a lot of people kind of took it as like either a new brand or something that was a spin-off of the few River City games we got. So it was really amazing to see that happen. And the other thing was, I've never worked on a game at WayForward where I've seen that much staying power, where I can I know that I could go on Twitch right now and there's a couple people streaming it right now. Usually there's like a little bit of interest for a while and then it peters out, but the consistency of the people that are playing this game has just been crazy.
Especially with the Xbox arcade thing or whatever it was.
Yeah, Xbox is so great. Xbox Live is so great for games just like that. No, I mean, honestly, like I was one of those cult following people who like not only played the original River City Ransom, but had the opportunity to play the imports back then. Yes, I spent a pretty penny on those. So
crazy, yeah.
I was really excited to see that this was coming back, that this was being celebrated in such a way. And we got a new spin on it, kind of an old spin if you base it on River City Girls Zero, but it's like a resurgence of it. And great job on you guys with that. It was just, so enjoy playing that game every so often. It's so much fun to play and so enjoyable just from a character development base, and it just a character building, aspect. I just love everything that you guys did on that. Adam,
on that, I kind of always see it as like a lot of people, Marvel movies just blew up and everybody loves them. But
absolutely,
I would imagine a good percentage of that audience, like they didn't go out and buy Doctor Strange comic books. They didn't know Iron Man before this. So it's kind of like, this franchise, this IP existed before, but it's like this, like Adam said, took off on its own like little thing, but still, it is still an homage and ode to what actually made it what it is today.
And then also combining a little bit more of other universes coming in together too. So I like the formula that's coming about this too, and I'm looking forward to see what's ahead of this next. I mean, continuing on in River City Girls, if River City Girls Zero received some additional content with this one, a lot of people, if they didn't read the media, write up or seen any, they don't realize that this is actually a kind of a, how can I consider that, like a resurgence of a classic import game that has come about, and you guys were able to add so much to the original content, including like English translations. And trust me, I used to read the game facts back in the day to try to read the translations of what was going on in this game. So trust me when I tell you, I extremely appreciate what you guys have done for this. And I mean, you added animated intros, motion comic cutscenes to this. That talks about the first adventure of Misako and Kyoko adventure with Kunio and Ricky. So like you added so much to this, whereas anything left out that you wanted to add on there, or did you have everything in plan?
I think the main thing was, and it's kind of interesting because like in terms of production, we only started on River City Girls Zero a few months ago. Like River City Girls 2, which Bannon's been directing, that's been in development for a while because that's a from scratch game. This was one where we went from the first game and then we released it, and then we started working on pre-development on the second one and started getting that going. But along the way, we were kind of just like, hey, it'd be cool if we could actually get this one to come out. This one that we keep talking about in interviews and stuff like that. So it was really cool that we were able to make that happen with ARC, and that we're able to get in all like the original songs and the animation. And we worked with a friend of ours, David, who did all the anime intros. He's just incredible.
I love them.
But as far as like, I think the thing is, we call it like a port plus. We wanted to dress it in stuff that had the flavor of River City and what we did on the first game and what Bannon's doing on the second game. But we didn't want to screw around too much with the game itself because this is the first time people are going to play it. So that's why we had, the two options. Like you can have the dialogue where it sounds like them, or you can have like a very faithful kind of translation of the original one. So as far as like what we wanted to do, I think we did pretty much everything we wanted to do, just because at least for this first experiment, we didn't want to screw too much with the game, partly because it's an old Super Famicom game, so you can't really crack open the code that much beyond stuff like translations, but we also wanted to be really careful. But I do think that if we get to do more of those, whether it's for Kunio-Kun or even just like other unrelated brands, if we can take that kind of approach in the future and bring back games or bring them to the US for the first time and kind of put the WayForward spin on them, I think we might kind of look into what we could actually do. Because that was some of the reviews were saying, oh, it's really hard. It would be cool if, maybe they had tweaked the challenge or whatever. Again, we didn't really want to do that this time just because we wanted to be really careful with our first time. But I think that's the only thing that we kind of left on the table. Everything else, cutscenes, songs, like we really packed it as much as we could think of ideas.
I think that's the best approach, because they're like, it's hard. It's like, it was hard and it still is, because that's what the game was. But the whole WayForward presents like all flashy presentation. Here's the game now. It's like, this is the untouched game. It is kind of the equivalent how some of the arcade ports did the hey, here's the arcade cabinet to fill in your giant widescreen TV. But it's it's an extreme version of that. But the core game, same thing.
Yeah, like there's like a good example is we recently worked with Ziggurat to port our game Blood Rain Betrayal to modern consoles. That was developed by WayForward. So for that one, we're like, okay, this is our own game. This came out in the US a decade ago, so we could tinker with it a little bit. So on that one, you could play it exactly as it was, or you could play a version where we tweak some of the difficulty settings based on player feedback.
Right.
That made sense for that one. But for something like this, where we didn't create the original one, yeah, we wanted to be a little more careful.
And that's from my perspective, that is very much understandable, because it's like, handling a work of art. You don't want to tweak it too much. You don't want to do too much to it. And I think for people who never got a chance to play it, I would be remiss to say that they need to experience what we experienced back then. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So let them go through what we had to go through in every way. And I'm actually glad that for this particular game, you didn't change it, because it just takes you back, to really enjoy what was been enjoyed for so long. And
this was the game that, in terms of at least the story and personality, inspired River City Girls into existence. So we wanted people to experience it the same way we did. We didn't want them to experience some, really drastically changed or reimagined version.
Right. And I can if you exactly. I can understand if you remade it from scratch and everything, like you said, but no,
you could do something like that too.
Exactly. But I also love the fact that you were able to see every single character from River City Girls, the first River City Girls game in their premiere for the first time ever, and see what they look like and such. And it was just, it was a great form of nostalgia and a way to get us excited about what's to come. So to that measure. Now, for both of you, the River City Girls series has created this comedy style that I feel like is just perfect for this franchise and this intellectual property here. You have great chemistry and character performances from Kaylee Mills and Kira Buckland, who plays Misako and Kyoko. It's just incredibly well. A lot of funny dialogue, cameo appearances from the Kunio-Kun Universe and Double Dragon. And on top of all that, awesome and hilarious music from composer Megan McDuffie. Can you guys really talk about the process of trying to create the right comedic vibe for this series, and was it challenging? And I'll start with you with that, Bannon.
The comedic, it is kind of calling out. I'm going to use Marvel again, because they do this. They call out their own weirdness.
Yeah.
And this is about I guess 30 years worth of weird video game logic that we're kind of calling out and kind of mocking, but it's stuff that we grew up in with, and we love this kind of stuff. So I think that's where a lot of the humor comes from, how Adam wrote in the first game, why is everybody fighting? It's you don't need to know. It's something that happens in games. Just deal with it.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's just that perfect mixture of, good combat, but also followed up with this, why am I juggling somebody? Why are they flying up into the air? It's whatever, just have fun with it.
It's breaking the fourth wall all the time and stuff.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is also the willingness of Arc System Works as our partner, because we do a lot of games where they're more toned down in terms of no, this is what the brand is, and you have to stick to this. So they were really open in terms of us reimagining the characters and giving them high personality and fun VO and lots of just craziness in the visuals. And I think, so the fact that they let us do that instead of just saying, no, stick to the way that Kunio-Kun always worked, that basically just gave us the opportunity to do the craziest kind of WayForward style game possible. I think it's a couple other things, or one, it was also a good opportunity where we didn't just have the personality in the story, we were able to carry it throughout everything. So it's that level of humor, it's in the attacks. It's when Kyoko does her dab attack, that's funny. The expressions on the characters' faces, the items you can buy in the stores, everything kind of has a similar sense of humor and a similar tone. And I think when you have the opportunity to do a game where it's that consistent, that ends up resonating a lot more than if it just has a funny script and everything else is kind of tame. And then one thing I wanted to mention, you talked about the charisma of Kaylee and Kira on both of the games, River City 1 and River City 2 and River City 0. With Misako and Kyoko, we've always recorded, and it's only for those two characters, we record them together. So it's actually everybody else.
So they're in one booth.
Individually. Yeah, they're in the booth together.
Yeah.
And that was important to us, so that the rhythm between the two of them is just
interesting.
Absolute perfect comedy, to a degree that I don't think you would be able to get if we were recording them individually. So we knew from the beginning that this series was really going to hang its hat on the relationship of those two friends.
That's really interesting. I've heard before where actors, would, do group, sessions. But for the most part, they normally do single sessions and to just play off of whatever they do. That's even to me, that's even better considering it's them two. And now I know that the chemistry is just really hitting off like boom, boom, boom. Especially in River City, you know, the introduction, the opening cutscene from River City Girl Zero, where you know she finds the retro game and the retro controller, and Misako really kind of throw shade on her for a minute, talking about she's broke. You know, good thing that you're broke, and otherwise
and it's funny too, because I mean, we're like, we recorded with Kira and Kaylee back in 2018 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was only a couple of sessions, but now we've gotten them back in for some promotional stuff, for the little bits in Zero, for a lot of new dialogue in 2. So they're really growing into the characters. So I think, even as much as I love their performance in the first game, I think hearing them now in the River City Zero, and then definitely when you're moving on to 2 and you hear all the stuff, they're just getting more and more confident in those characters.
It's really they're assimilating very well to it indeed. So, I mean, well, here's the thing too. Like you talked about Arc System Works, giving you the okay to be comical and have this type of vibe. Was it any intention of having a more serious tone with this, or was it just all comedy from the jump?
When we pitched it initially, it started with the art style. So the earliest pitch wasn't really goofy, but it looked exactly like it is to a degree where like the very first images ever drawn by our concept artist Priscilla, they're actually used in the game, and they're actually used in some key art. So it's been pretty consistent. Right. But I don't know. I mean, when did we start thinking in terms of like voice and story and stuff? That was a little ways into it, right?
I honestly think it's when we started suggesting we should start using the big bug eyes.
Yeah.
Like when, just like in the original Kunio-Kun games and the dodgeball and stuff, like their eyes like go out, and I was like, I honestly think that was kind of the deciding factor. Are we going to go for that like over the top, that just like nobody's eyes should bug out like this? It's not going to be like a tough, like blood's coming out of these people. It is just kind of like, yeah, let's just go for it. Then the dab happened, and then it just like things snowballed from there.
I think it's also just when you don't have a limitation, the WayForward group is just going to keep going crazier and crazier and do stuff that makes us laugh. Like I remember you and me sitting down coming up with like the level objectives, and it's like, little minor spoilers, but it's like, they should fight zombies in a trash compactor, and that'd be funny. And then what if when they got there wasn't even the key, and the guy had the key the whole time? And it's just coming up with crazy stuff that just makes us laugh, and then it just stays in the game because it's entertaining to the team.
As I always tell my team, if you have a dumb idea, please tell me, because I love dumb. Please tell me.
That is every person's dream at working at a job.
I love it.
I mean, like, honestly, the vibe that I loved about this game, even when I reviewed it, it inspired me to create. When I created the graphic, I created using the character renders of Misako and Kyoko, in the way that, and I made a tribute to them and Desperately Seeking Susan. And did the whole background. I did the font and everything like that. And it had Desperately Seeking Kunio and Riki. Exactly. And I was like, this is so perfect. I mean, but that's the type of inspiration that this has gotten for fans and for myself included. It's just a great combination of what, you guys are putting together there. So Bannon,
thanks.
We are counting down the days till the highly anticipated follow-up River City Girls 2. We saw.
I've heard about this game.
Yes, apparently so have I. We saw the trailer. That we got a lot to look out forward to: new characters, move sets, and more. I mean, can you talk a little about what we can expect without really spoiling anything about Misako and Kyoko's latest adventure?
I'll spoil some stuff. The stuff you saw in the trailer was me desperately recording footage. It looks so much better now. I was just telling Adam about the VFX that we've just been putting in. That I think people are really going to love the just overall presentation of the game. Not only that, like I was playing the original game to make sure that it feels exactly the same. Like everything, it's a 1-to-1. We had to recreate a lot of stuff because of the online component. It just didn't work. Had to recreate a lot of stuff. But in that recreation, I was like, let's make this move combo into this, but let's also do this, because that would be sweet if I could do this. I'm not saying what these things are, so I'm not ruining anything, but I think people are going to find a lot of creativity in the combat, like even more so than the first one. Because as Adam said, like, the popularity, people are still streaming. That is perfect time for me to lurk like a creeper and watch like what people are doing, take notes, see what annoyed them, what they loved about it, and heighten those things. Not heighten the annoyance, but like, let's get rid of the annoying things and let's fix that and replace it with this option of making it fun now, whatever it might be.
It was fun before.
Yeah. So but like, even playing the first one, I'm like, it's still good, but hot damn, the stuff that I'm doing in part 2 is feeling so much better. Like,
yeah, the first one, I think, like looking back at it now, it's a much more, it's a smaller focused game. You could see like, okay, the team is getting the sense of personality, they're getting the combat style, they're getting the items. But when you look at it does, yeah. When you compare it to what it is now, because what was crazy is we had to start from scratch on the first game. I mean, there have been almost 50 games at that point in the series, but we weren't using that code. We were coming up with a new art style. So the amount of stuff that we had to come up with in terms of level up systems and combat systems, and even just like collision and just displaying the art, was such a massive haul that we always knew if we could get to a sequel, if it sold well and we could do a sequel, then it would really be, to a degree, we'd be able to kind of, really unleash it and get a lot more ambitious, because we already had the systems we could piggyback off of.
Yeah. The collision doesn't sound exciting. Like, oh, I walk into a thing. All right. It makes me stop moving. But there is the scene that I always point out to people is there's a scene in Uptown where you see like the video games everywhere and stuff like that.
Right.
That one scene was our test case. Can we get, like, a brawler is usually the background, you don't interact with the background. It's just a kind of a flat backdrop. You walk left to right, you don't go back left, whatever. You don't go up and down, like in doorway, whatever. Like, you move in the Z axis, but that stuff that you run into, it might be a barrel, you punch the barrel, it blows up, whatever.
Right.
But if you go to that video game shopping area, you're going to see there is a vending machine, there's a ceiling you can hit your head on, but that ceiling has a left wall you can wall jump off of. There's an angled wall over here. There's things that you could just jump on and interact with and get on top of and get underneath.
Right.
That is incredibly hard to tell a program. I know this looks like 2D pixels,
but
it needs to function as 3D. So with that collision stuff, we've gone just buck wild on like the levels are bigger, they're more vertical. You're going to be able to like, I'm trying not to say too many things. Spoilers.
I'm just sitting here like, go on.
One thing that's interesting is on River City 1 and 2, I don't think people know this, we probably haven't mentioned it that much. The environment, it's a full 3D game. So it looks 2D because we're basically drawing pixel art that all gets squished. Right. If you look at it in the editor, it's like, here's an object over here, here's an object over here, the way they move. So we're not doing it the way old NES games are, where it's just like moving.
It's not in layers.
No, they're actually like moving in 3D space, but it just, as you're looking at it, it gets all squished flat.
Interesting.
Because of the art style.
It's those as I always say, like the sidewalk things where it looks like, oh, I'm about to fall on the pit, but the sidewalk art that doesn't make any sense if you look at it from a different angle. But there's going to be a lot of more verticality. There's a lot, you'll see the scenes are just massive now.
Yeah, and a big part of that was also like the way that we constructed the levels on both games.
Right.
Is Bannon would basically figure out the spatial aspects of everything ahead of time. So working with like, we should put those out there at some point so somebody can see some of those. It's basically like the first version of every level was just gray boxes with things to hop on, getting all of the areas right in terms of the distance, in terms of, like you said, I can hop off a wall here, I can climb up to this area here, making that
reach here,
exactly,
so wall jump and
making that feel right. And then what we would do afterwards is, once it felt right, then we would give it to our art team and they would just paint it over and make it look pretty. So it wasn't like with a lot of pixel games, you have your tile set and you're kind of figuring out the art and the layout as you go.
Right.
This way, on these games, we made it so it felt right from the beginning and then arted it up all at one pass afterwards.
It basically looked like the X-Men like training room, the danger room, or like Tron. It's just like a flat kind of graph paper looking place.
I think the beautiful and enticing thing about it is that you're keep comparing it to a lot of Marvel lore, and I'm a Marvel fan, so that works out for me.
It's where my brain's at.
And what better, like if you're gonna like take shades from something, why not Marvel?
Yeah.
Whatever works. But I want to talk about like which you guys have gone through since the last time we've spoke, which was like all the way dating back to 2019, like I said in the beginning. You know, with the world rapidly changing due to the pandemic, how much of an effect did it have on the development of not only these two games, but just like every game that you guys are working on at WayForward since 2020?
I mean, as far as like, we were kind of in a lucky position with a lot of the artistic leads and artistic talent that we had, and the music and the artists and the animators, like a lot of those people on the first game, it was really spread out. So there was only kind of a core team, mostly with me and Bannon and mostly the programmers that were internal. Most of our leads in terms of like Megan with the music and Valeria with the backgrounds and Hunter with the sprites, like a lot of our rock stars, Priscilla with the art, were spread out like all over the country, and some of them all over the world. So that didn't change too much.
Right.
But it's definitely, I mean, yeah, how does working, day to day with the team entirely, you're almost entirely online, basically.
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Like it is actually a little harder to come in to work to the office to now do, because I've been doing it from home for about 2 years now.
Right.
So for me to come to the office now, I'm like on Zoom calls or Google chats, just like trying to be quieter because I'm now around people. I'm like, I just do this in my spare bedroom office thing, and now I have to, I don't know. It's honestly, it's really hasn't affected much at all. The only thing it really did affect is the fact that if I ever saw anything like, oh, VFX, that's not right, I would get up and walk over to the VFX department and be able to like, I act things out a lot.
Right.
Like, oh no, the move needs to be this, but I just turn the camera on and act like an idiot in front of the camera and like do up, demonstrate moves. But other than that, I really don't think it affected. Like, I think we're so set up nowadays to just like, I mean, you're interviewing us right now, and this is just fine.
Yeah.
We're remote.
Very true. I mean, like, I think the best who were able to, assimilate to the times were actors, or at least actors doing voice roles and game developers, in particular, like indie game developers. Like I remember talking with Greg Casavan. He did, Hades. Like, and majority of them did that game at home during the pandemic and everything. So it's like, I mean, everybody's used to doing it because they were already at home anyway. So it's just awesome that there's still powering through, and we're able to have such great quality games come out despite the climate right now. So I think that's just.
I worked in restaurants. That is as a customer or guest, I need to go there and enjoy that thing. We are making things for the people that are stuck at home.
Yeah.
Kind of like, so it really hasn't changed much at all.
Right.
I mean, I do miss interacting with people and like doing that, like, hey, like grab the controller right here and do this.
Yeah.
So it is now like, play remote with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little different in that aspect, but it's still, I wasn't really affected.
Good. That's very good to
I don't
hear.
know if I even told you, I stopped coming into the office 2 weeks before they told us not to come in.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm working on a thing that I can't say.
Yeah.
And I was like, why am I coming in the office? And then they said, don't come to the office. I was like, nobody noticed I wasn't even in there.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited though. So this is like, one of the things I'm doing right now is lining up our GDC meetings. So that's exciting to us because, we do a lot of biz dev, but it's all Zoom calls, it's all emails and stuff. So being able to see publishers and potential partners in person is going to be awesome.
Are they opening? Is it going to be live for all developers this year?
Yep. Live in person, meetings in person, unless something changes. Yeah. Fingers crossed.
That's yeah, exactly. I got high hopes this time around. Yeah. But Bannon, like with WayForward having the rights to use many characters in the Kunio-Kun and Double Dragon universe, was it a difficult task to choose who you wanted to be, to include as playable characters for the sequel?
No. That was a given. That was just like her. Mm-hmm. It was just like, it was done, like, nope, them. It just made sense. And honestly, it was like the easiest decision. It was just like, should we do this? Yes.
Yeah, those were figured out pretty early. Like
Yeah.
in the first formal pitch we gave to Arc System Works for the second game, we already had Marion and Provy both figured out.
I honestly can't think of any other two characters that I even wanted.
Yeah,
I think
they got there differently though. I mean, Provy, she's your baby, she's from your underground game, so that was awesome to connect her, and she's such a cool character. Marion was very much because people were just obsessed with her after the first game.
Long time coming.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, but it's like, in the first game, she's literally one PNG file. It's just like one image of her in the shop, but so many people got obsessed with her and loved her.
Why?
And so, I mean, I saw them writing articles and stuff. And so at a certain point, yeah, just the team talking, it's like, we have to make her playable.
And the heritage of the series, it's just like, she has to be. It didn't make any sense to have anybody else in the game.
Right. Well, even still, even with that said, like, if you're 80s, gamer like I was, the only role memory you have of Marion is her actually getting punched, defenseless, and walking away. And then to some extent, part 2. We don't want to talk about part 2. So it's great to have her back in this form and be able to take control of her life and just be the badass that we know she could be this time around.
And I'm excited for people to play as her. She is kind of the inspiration for, I need to go back and look at the original 4 characters, because I don't want people just playing as Marion. I want to make sure our original characters are just as exciting.
Right.
Same with Provy and Marion. It's just like, these two are really awesome. I don't want people to just go like, I just want to play as the new characters.
Yeah, and one of the cool things too, like a little kind of tease we can give of the sequel is, I think we mentioned this already in interviews, the story is more dynamic. So in the first game, it's just the 2 girls, and then the boys are not really factored in, they're just bonus characters. The way that we did the story in this one, it really does factor in all 6 of the playable characters.
Yeah.
And so you actually do get more of the lore of Marion and the Double Dragon universe. Like, we're able to pull some of that stuff in some really cool ways that I think people will dig.
You mentioned Hades.
Yes.
Earlier. Kevin did a word count. I don't know. We almost got to the limit of Hades.
Oh, really?
Word count. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of words.
Oh, yeah. Yes. So I mean, the compare that's why when he said quaint earlier for River City 1. So like the script and the overall experience in part 2. I mean, it's hard to say how long it is in terms of playtime compared to the first one, but the script I think is like 2 or 3 times as long.
Wow.
And then
that's awesome.
Top of that, we're rewriting the dialogue for every permutation of the playable character. So, the standard, first pass is the classic Masako Kyoko story. But if you're playing as Masako Marion, they're the 2 active speakers in the story. If you're playing as Provy Marion, they're the 2 active speakers. So we had to do like iteration on all that stuff.
That's awesome. You guys are making me like really anticipating this now. But I do want to ask, and forgive me for this, but you guys have already put in so much in this already, and that, just like you did last game, but you also gave us a little bit of extra. Well, are we expected to possibly get that down the line too, or is there any works just, this is it, or is it going to be sort of a bit of a
DLC like stuff afterwards?
Yes.
I will say nothing to this.
Hey, I would be remiss if I didn't ask this.
Yeah, I don't want to underpromise or overpromise or any of that. So I'm just like, we'll see.
Enough said.
COVID's really changed how we do work here, so we, might not be able to do it. So
hey, I'm a firm believer of hope. So we will see. You guys didn't
Even
let me
though
down.
Earlier, I said that it didn't matter, but I'm using this as an excuse now.
Hey, Hope got us the sequel. So I'm actually Hope got us the sequel and the prequel. So I'm more than optimistic here. So, but I've asked this question before. And by the way, this is like the last 2 questions I have. I just want to say thank you guys. It's always a pleasure having anybody from WayForward here, but in particular you two, in terms of River City Girls. It's awesome. I'm really a big fan of what you guys have done with this franchise. But
well, thank you.
I've asked this question before the last time you were on, and since then we have seen many intellectual properties, expand their series to other formats. So I have to ask, we in talks of Shenmue, the Cuphead show, Halo, getting live action and animated adaptations. Has there been any talks of River City Girls in that direction?
There's nothing we can announce, and there's nothing specific we can get into. Like I'll say everything's been discussed. So everything you can imagine, every version of it, even beyond games, absolutely discussed.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to wait and see as far as what actually happens and when we can share stuff. I mean, definitely some cool stuff are we finally just, I'll have to bring them in. We just got the plushies for Masako Kyoko. Were sold a long time ago, but that's actually shipped out. I just got mine that I ordered yesterday. They look fantastic. So we're doing some cool merch stuff. One of the things that we're working on right now that we already talked about is an art book, and that's coming along really good because there's so much key art and so many characters between the 3 games. So I think that's going to be like a really, really awesome thing when that comes out. And the way that we're kind of theming the book and everything is a really interesting kind of take on it. So there's stuff like that. But yeah, as far as like alternate media formats, it's something we are definitely interested in. We've definitely talked about the possibility. We've talked about it with Arc System Works. But we'll have to see. Nothing to announce right now.
That's all I'm going to say for that.
Want to do everything.
Yeah.
As you should.
I think part of that is also just like, the way that we did the game, because hearing Kaylee and Kira now as their voices and getting a sense of the humor, and then working with David Liu on like the intro cinematic for the Zero and Kay on the, his animations, like it feels like a TV series and it feels like a movie and it feels like it should be a comic book. So I think, just the stuff that we put into the games kind of lend itself to all that. So hopefully, fingers crossed we can get it outside of games, because we're definitely interested in pretty much everything.
It's made for more.
Yeah.
I've said that since the last time we talked, and I just, when I played this game and the dialogue and the chemistry and the storyline and the development, it so much just expanded in my mind on what this could do for just not only you guys but fans in general.
There's one little thing. So if you're on TikTok, go find the WayForward account. We have little skits with Masako Kyoko that are written just for TikTok. So that's the one thing that involves them outside of trailers and outside of games.
That's clever.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's clever.
It's dopey. It's us figuring out like, what is TikTok again? And kind of like, putting our spin on it. But yeah, there's little skits with Kaylee and Kira that are written specifically for TikTok.
I mean, this is the whole like Trigger doing the Shantae thing. Like people were like, we want that. I was like, of course.
Yeah,
you're right. And I remember speaking with Matt Bozen about the same thing. Like, you guys are coming out with these characters and these IPs that are just really creating its own network itself. Yeah. So, I mean, here's the hoping that we see a lot more in different facets and formats for that point. But last question, when it comes to WayForward in general, is there anything that we should look out for in the near future that you could speak about?
So River City Zero is out now on Switch digitally, and then it's going to come out on all the other platforms soon.
Yeah.
You can buy the pre-order, the physical right now with limited run. That's another thing. Yeah, in terms of like expanding it, doing the action figures for them was awesome, and so we got to plan those out. We got to help with the design. So I hope lots of people get that, because that's a really big like wish fulfillment for us. We've got River City 2 coming out later this year. We have Dawn of the Monsters is our big kaiju battler. That's coming out soon.
Yes.
Yeah,
looking forward to that.
That one's really cool. We're really excited about that. We're working with developer 13 AM on that. And then trying to think what's announced. Advance Wars through Nintendo, and we're helping with that. And we've got other things that are coming out this year that are not announced yet, but it's all really cool. I mean, as far as like compared to previous rounds of WayForward projects, I think the current round of what we're finishing up and what we're moving on to next is some of the best, original and licensed games we've ever been able to do.
Awesome. Well, I got to tell you guys, like, I've been a big fan of everything all of you have done since I got my hands on DuckTales Remastered. And I felt like whoever can make this happen to one of my all-time favorite games, I am totally on board with this company. And since then, you have not let me down one bit with everything that you guys have come out from, what you guys have done with the River City Girls and the whole Kunio-Kun Universe, revamping that. Matt with Shanti. I mean, it's just awesome stuff. And thank you guys very much for all of your hard work on that.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. It's been fun.
It's not hard work. We just stroll in here and just start, do this, make punch.
Hey, I got to say to people when they see what you do, or even as little as what I do, it's like, it's a lot of fun being able to do this, but you got to work hard to have fun. So don't get it twisted.
Oh, it is a lot of work doing this.
Indeed. But before we get in this whole entire great, lovely interview, how about some plugs? Let everybody know where they can find WayForward and everything looking forward from there.
Southern California. That's where
I miss California so much.
We're pretty much, I think if you go on Facebook or Twitter or
apparently a TikTok
anywhere that you can go, just type in WayForward and you'll probably get like the official account. One thing, we're trying to expand more into being everywhere. So, I mean, like I said, we're doing little bits of original stuff with the River City Girls on TikTok. We're gonna, in the coming months, get more active in terms of being on Twitch, doing official WayForward streams, doing like, live YouTube stuff. So that's stuff that we're kind of like laying the groundwork, getting that a lot finalized right now, but definitely something that we're hoping to have more of a presence on in 2022. I
was going to set up a live cam in Adam's office. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Nothing secret. Nothing secret going on.
Well, thank you guys so very much. It's been awesome. And I'm so looking. First of all, thank you for River City Girls Zero, because I'm extremely enjoying that in every facet of its being. And then, I'm looking very much forward to River City Girls 2. I mean, probably one of the highlights of my 2022 in terms of gaming is probably going to be that game. So and trust me, there's a lot of games to be played this year, but that one right there is like, okay, I'm going to be dedicating a lot of time for that. And I'm looking forward to it. So thank you guys so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this very special episode of Talk Time Live exclusive. On behalf of myself, Adam, and Bannon, all I got to say is learn to let go, live life, and love all things anime, comics, movies, and games. This is ACMG Presents Talk Time Live. We are out of here. Take care.